Welcome to a brand new set of Devos this week, and this is actually part 2, a second segment of a type of devotion I call negative beliefs, or we could even call it broken beliefs if you'd like. But they're things that we tend to believe in the scriptures that aren't necessarily true. Not in the scriptures, but things that we believe as Christians that aren't necessarily true. And in fact, if we believe these things, they tend to damage us in our relationship to Jesus. Here's a big one. Ready? Let's jump right into it. If it's not hurting anyone, it's fine. How many of you have heard that said, right? Well, I look at porn. It's not hurting anyone. It's fine. Or you say, well, my wife doesn't know that I say these things about her, and she doesn't know how I feel about her, and she doesn't know that I'm flirting. If she doesn't know it, it's not really hurting her. It's fine. Now, this goes beyond the scope of even just marital relationships or sexual problems. It's about the way we treat ourselves. Well, I'm only hurting myself. I'm only affecting myself if I do this. If I, use this substance, or if I eat too much, it's only hurting me. If it's not hurting anyone else, it's fine. Well, this idea is not found anywhere in Scripture. And when we talk about our lives in this selfish way, what we're doing is we're undermining the great price that Jesus paid to buy our life and make it his own. And there was somebody that had spoken to me a couple weeks ago, and they asked me in the Bible, they said, well, where is it in the Bible that I could find scriptures about what my entitlements are, my rights, and what as a person I am allowed to do? And I said, that's easy. There's not really anywhere, because if you read the Bible through the lens of who you are, Jesus makes some pretty strong statements about how we ought to live. He doesn't say, hey, every single day, your life is your own, man. Seize the day, carpe diem, do what you got to do. You are your own person. He says instead, hey, you know how I'm walking and I'm going to the cross? Why don't you pick up your cross and die daily? Instead of talking about how we should live for ourselves, he talks about how we should die in love. That love ought to be the chief motivation, how it affects other people. And that we should be thinking the way that Jesus thought of us, which means he gave his life up to show us that kind of love. And there's a passage in Romans that sums this up pretty well. Romans chapter 14, verse 7. None of us lives to himself, and none of us dies to himself. So even if it's just us, this body is not our own. This life is not ours. And when we think of that, that means that what we ought to do ought to be done in the vein of pleasing God and loving him. So before you think, well, it's not hurting it's not really hurting anyone, it's just me. Well, remember, God cares about you. God died for your soul. So stop believing that, and instead start trying to take that life and use it to please him and honor him.